Alright, what we're going to do today is learn how to solve a two-step equation. Alright, so before we get into the steps that we would use for solving, I want to look at a simple equation. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Okay, is that true? Yes, if I've got 2 apples and I add 3 more apples, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apples. So yes, that's going to be correct. So if we take this equation and we kind of look at it, we know that it's equal. That 2 and 3 is the same thing as 5, right? So we're saying that if they're equal, that this side is the same value as this side. Alright, so what if I took 3 of the apples away? Then I would have 2 apples, right? So would that still be equal? Well, no. 2 apples is not the same thing as 5 apples. Alright, now what if I took 3 apples from the left side and I also took 3 apples from the right side? What would happen? Well, this would cancel out and I would be left with 2, and then 5 minus 3 is 2. So then that would be a true statement, correct? Alright, let's look if we have 4 minus 1 equals 3. Well, that's a true statement. If I have 4 apples, I take away 1, I've got 3. So let's look if I add another apple, what happens? Well, then if I had 4, I took away 1, and then I add 1 back, then I'm going to have 4 apples again, right? Well, is it still equal to 3? Well, no. So how could I make it equal? Well, if I added 1 on this side, I'd do the same thing, equal on both sides. So if I have minus 1 plus 1, that cancels out, and I'm left with 4. Excuse me, 4. So if I have 3 over here and I add 1, then I have 4. So we're equal. Okay? Alright, so what are we seeing here? It's, if I'm doing something to one side, I have to do it to the other, right? Alright, let's try, what if we're multiplying? What if I have 2, oops, I got ahead of myself there. 2 times 3 equals 6. Well, if I'm multiplying by 3, what if I divide by 3? Well, 3 divided by 3 is going to be 1, so I'm left with 2 times 1 is 2. So if I'm dividing by 3 over this side, I divide by 3 over here to keep my equation balanced, to keep it equal. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. So it works, doesn't it? Okay, well, what if I've got 6 divided by 2 equals 3? Alright, if I'm dividing by 2, okay, I'm dividing by 2, and then I want to divide by 2. If I want to get rid of that, dividing by 2, What's the opposite of dividing? Multiply. So I would multiply by 2. Okay? Can I divide by 6? Well, no. That's what I'm dividing into. So it's always the denominator, your bottom number. That's what you're dividing by. So when you do the opposite, it would involve that bottom number, not the top. You never involve the top number. Okay? Alright, so if I'm working this, if I have 2 times 6 divided by 2, well, the 2's cancel out, and I'm left with 6. So if I multiply it by 2 on this side, that means I have to do the same thing over here. And 3 times 2 is 6. So again, we're correct. Alright, so if you notice, in all 4 operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, when we got rid of one thing, we got rid of it, or we undid that operation by doing the opposite. Alright, so if you want to undo an operation, if I want to undo adding something, then I would subtract. If I wanted to undo subtracting something, then I would add it back. It's kind of like if somebody took $2 from me. If they wanted to undo taking that money from me, they would give me back $2, right? So if they took it away, they'd undo that by giving it back to me, adding it back to my amount of money. Alright, so we're undoing. If we're multiplying, then we would undo it by dividing. Alright, if we're dividing, then we would undo it by multiplying. Okay? Alright, so we're going to use that concept when we're talking about solving equations. Alright, so in Algebra 1, we deal with x's, variables. Okay, we're going to deal with variables. Alright, and variables are going to be letters that represent an unknown value. Okay? Letters that represent an unknown value. And you can use in every letter you want to use, but most of the time in algebra we use X. Unless you get into a word problem where you're talking about several different things, then if you're talking about apples and oranges, A would be apples, O would be oranges, okay? But majority of the time you're looking at X. Alright, so variables represent the unknown. So if I want to find the unknown value, then I need to isolate it in an equation. What's isolate mean? Alone. Alright, being in COVID-19, we had to go into isolation, we had to go alone. Alright, so what we're going to do in algebra is just, you're always trying to find that unknown value. And to find that unknown value, you have to get the X, the variable which represents that unknown value, by itself. And then whatever it equals is that value, your solution. Alright, so let's just look at a basic equation. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Alright, well, what if I didn't know what this number, what plus 3 equals 5? Well, everybody says 2. But what if I didn't know? It was an unknown value. All right. Okay, so that we're trying to find that unknown value. So, in order to find that, we need to isolate. So if I want to get that x by itself, then I'm trying to get this 3 away. All right, my goal is just to have x equals some number, that unknown value. But I've got a plus 3 there that I don't need on that side. So if I'm said x plus 3, if I'm adding 3 to x, how can I get rid of that operation of adding 3? Well, we know that if we do the opposite, that'll get rid of it. If I have 3 minus 3, it goes away, doesn't it? Okay. All right, so remember what we talked about earlier was when you're undoing an operation, that you have to keep it balanced. Okay, so if I'm subtracting 3 from one side, then I've got to keep it balanced and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, because we're talking about an equation. Everything has to be the same on both sides, same value on both sides. All right, so if 5 minus 3 would be 2. The 3's canceled out, all you had left was x. So now this is telling me that x, my unknown value, is 2. So that would be our solution. 2 would be the value of x. Now we can check it. If I'm going to check it, how can I do that? Well, if we know that 2 is our unknown value of x, that means that's the same thing as x, right? So we're going to substitute 2 for x. So instead of x, we're going to put 2, and then we'll put plus 3 equals 5. Well, does 2 plus 3 equal 5? Equals 5. It's the same on both sides, so it means we got the right answer. Okay? All right, let's look at one where we're multiplying. All right, so let's look at 3x equals 15. All right, so again, our key is to isolate a variable, to get it by itself. So if I want to get the x by itself, I have to get rid of 3. Okay, so think of what operation is 3 performing. So 3 is multiplying with the x, correct? When they're next to each other, it means they're multiplying. There's nothing in between them. All right, so 3 times x. So instead of multiplying the 3, I want to do the opposite to get rid of it. So I'm going to divide by 3. All right? And whatever I do on one side, I do on the other. Okay? So when I divide by 3, 3 divided by 3, they cancel out. Becomes 1. So now I have 1x, and I don't have to put the 1 there. Bring down your equal sign, and remember, always try to keep everything lined up. All right, keep everything neat so you don't get your sides mixed up, because as we go, the problems get bigger and it's more involved, and you've got more steps of undoing. So if you don't keep your equal sign lined up and everything on the side it's supposed to be on, you can get mixed up. So be careful of that. Just start off now doing it neat. Alright, so 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my solution says that x equals 5. So we want to check our answer. So we're going to substitute x, the variable x, with a value of 5. So 3 times 5 equals 15. So what's 3 times 5? 15 equals 15. So that's true, so our answer is correct. Alright, let's try one with dividing. So what if we have x divided by 4 equals 6. Alright, we need to get rid of the 4. What's the 4 doing with the x? What's the operation? It's dividing. So we're going to do the opposite of dividing, and we're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. Alright, 4 times x divided by 4 cancels those out. Alright, all we're left with is x. Bring down your equal. And 6 times 4 on the right side is 24. You say, oh, that's a bigger number. Well, don't be scared of bigger numbers. They're just numbers. Let's check our answer. So we're going to substitute the value 24 for our x. So we're just going to plug in 24. Instead of writing x, we write 24 in our problem. Divided by 4 equals 6. So 25 divided by 4 is 6. So our answer is correct. Okay. Alright. Now at the beginning I said we're going to look at two-step equations. Alright. All of these have been one step. Okay, simple one-step equations. So let's just add where we're doing a problem that has 2. No, don't get scared. It's easy. Alright. So let's look. What if I have 2x plus 3 equals 11? Okay? Alright. When you're solving two steps, think about order of operations. We're going to kind of go backwards. Since we're undoing, we're going backwards. Alright? So, adding, subtracting. We're going to look at those first. Alright, adding and subtracting. Do I have any adding, subtracting on the left side? Because we're trying to isolate the x, right? So, let's first get rid of adding 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Okay, this cancels out, and I'm left with the 2x, bring it on down, equals 11 minus 3 is 8. Alright, so now we need to get rid of the 2. And what's it doing? It's multiplying. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. So this cancels out. X equals 4. So now we have a solution. X equals 4. Alright? It's no big deal, was it? Alright, so let's check our answer. So we're going to substitute the value 4 for x. So 2 times 4 plus 3 equals 11. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 equals 11. And 8 plus 3 is 11, so we're good. That's our answer. Okay, let's try one more, and then I'm going to let you work on some. Let's see, what if we have... Alright, wonder if we have 4x minus 12 equals 24. Alright, so we're going to start off with our adding and subtracting first. Okay, we're kind of going farthest from the x and coming in toward it, undoing. Okay, so I'm going to, instead of subtracting 12, I'm going to undo that by adding 12. Remember, I do on both sides. So this cancels out, and I'm left with 4x equals 24 plus 12 is 36. So now I need to get rid of the 4. It's multiplying with the x, so the opposite of multiplying is divide. So if I'm multiplying by 4, I undo by dividing by 4 on both sides to keep it balanced, to keep it equal. Alright, so that cancels out. I'm left with x. Bring down your equal sign. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So my solution is x equals 9. So now we're going to check our answer, and we're going to substitute the value of 9 for x. Alright, so 4x, 4 times x, so 4 times 9 minus 12 equals 24. So 4 times 9 is 36. Bring everything else down. Minus 12 equals 24. And 36 minus 12 is 24. Equals 24. So we're good. Alright? Alright. I'm going to give you a few more problems for you to practice on, and we'll go from there.